My name is Claire Hayes, and I am 36 years old. A decorated officer, trained in strategy, survival, and the unforgiving art of asymmetric warfare. But today, none of that mattered. Because today, I was not Colonel Hayes, not the ghost of missions long buried. Today, I was just a name that nobody remembered. Not even my own mother, General Margaret Hayes. I stepped onto the qualification range at Camp Redstone, the air dense with a scent of gunpowder and oil. Around me, rows of broad-shouldered men leaned on crates of ammunition, their voices loud, their confidence easy. All of them Navy SEALs, carved in arrogance, hardened by tradition. And there she was, my mother, standing tall, her chest heavy with medals, her posture unshakable. She turned slowly, her sharp eyes narrowing as they swept across me. "And you are," she snapped, her voice as cold and detached as it had been my entire childhood. I stood still, breathing once, steady before answering. "Claire Hayes." Her jaw tightened. Her eyes didn't flicker. Not even the smallest trace of recognition. A SEAL commander beside her smirked, his laughter low and mocking. "You don't belong here." The others picked it up. Chuckles spread across the range like a line of gunfire. Their laughter stabbed sharper than any blade. But I said nothing. Not a single word. I turned my head toward the weapon rack, where rifles gleamed beneath the morning sun. M4S, MK18S, each polished with precision. And then, at the very end, the one I had always favored, the old M14. A beast of a weapon. Heavy, relentless, and mine. I walked forward, their sneers following me, their whispers biting the air. I picked it up, and for a moment, the laughter died. Silence hovered. My hands remembered every groove, every motion. I didn't need to warm up, didn't need to stretch. My body knew. My memory was alive. One breath in. Hold. Trigger pressure. Boom. The round tore the air and struck dead center. Another breath. Boom. A playing card, split clean in half on the target's edge. Silence. Pure, perfect silence. Someone whispered, "She just broke Larson's record." I shifted my sleeve, and for an instant, the sunlight caught the ink etched into my skin. The mark of a unit they thought didn't exist. A black raven replaced, now reborn. The insignia of Iron Falcon. Classified, disavowed, untraceable. Unless you knew. Their silence was no longer disbelief. It was fear, wonder, awe. I didn't speak. Not one word. Because when men like that laugh at you, the best answer isn't noise. It's numbers. Accuracy. Proof. I set the rifle down, and I walked away. Past their stunned eyes. Past their crumbling pride. Past the mother who had erased me long ago. And in that silence, I carried the truth. I didn't need to be accepted. I didn't need to be remembered. I just needed to deliver when it counted. In the Hayes household, everything had always revolved around my older sister, Emily. She was the golden child, the chosen one, the heir to my mother's legacy. Mother used to call her the next Admiral Hayes, long before Emily had even learned how to swim. Her room was a shrine to achievement, filled with naval posters, medals from youth competitions, photographs of her shaking hands with retired officers. Mine was different. My room sat quietly at the end of the hall. No visitors, no praise, no expectations. The only person who ever saw me, who ever truly saw me, was my mother in rare moments before she hardened into the general she became. She would brush my hair in the kitchen and whisper, "You're the steady one, Claire. The strong one." But those whispers faded. When I was 12, she fell ill, and within months she was gone. After that, it felt like I disappeared too. Dinner at home became a strategy briefing. Emily's prep classes for Annapolis turned into the new family religion. Conversations no longer circled around family. They circled around legacy, ambition, and her future. I ate in silence, studied alone, and trained in secret. While Emily was praised for every passable grade, I aced exams and tucked the papers into drawers. When she brought home participation ribbons, they went straight to the fridge. But when I won first place at district track, no one came to the meet. I stopped hoping for applause. I stopped waiting for recognition. Instead, I started to build myself in the shadows. I rose before dawn, running alone through cold mornings. I taught myself to shoot with a BB gun in the woods behind our house, soda cans and pine cones as my targets. I memorized my mother's old training manuals, drills I wasn't allowed to learn. By 16, I was stronger than Emily. By 17, I had built myself a training regimen harsher than her SEAL prep program. And still, in my mother's eyes, I was invisible. When Emily applied to Annapolis, the entire house held its breath. She was rejected the first time, then the second, then the third. Still, my mother told her, "Don't worry, Emily. It's politics. They'll see your potential soon." When I quietly applied to the military academy, no one knew. No support, no recommendation. Just my own will. And when the letter came back, top percentile, full merit scholarship, I left it on the kitchen table. No one said a word. My mother moved it aside like it was junk mail. Emily didn't even glance at it. There was no congratulations. No pride. Only silence. So I packed my bag alone. I hugged no one. No one saw me out the door. But as I stepped onto that cold academy bus, I made a vow. A vow as sharp as steel. If they wouldn't see me now, they would damn well see me later. Not because I craved their praise, but because I needed to prove to myself and to the world that I was never the lesser Hayes. I was simply the one they underestimated. I never told anyone when I enlisted. Not my mother, not Emily, not even the few friends who claimed to know me. At the recruitment office, when they asked for a preferred call sign, I wrote only one thing: C. Hayes. No first name. No history. Just an initial. I wanted to disappear in plain sight. Not out of shame, no, never that. But because anonymity was the only shield I had. Being the daughter of General Margaret Hayes came with questions. Too many questions. Some doors would open for me unfairly. Others would slam shut just as fast. I wanted neither. I wanted to carve my path without the shadow of her name, without the weight of her favoritism for Emily. Training was brutal. It was designed to break you, to expose weakness. But I had lived my whole life in silence, in shadows, in invisibility. Hardship was nothing new to me. I thrived where others faltered. I excelled in land navigation, in hand-to-hand combat, in precision marksmanship. My instructors noticed. Quietly. A longer glance here, a silent nod there. No praise, no applause. But I could see it in their eyes. They knew I was different. After my final qualifying exam, one of them pulled me aside. His voice low, almost cautious. "We're assembling a classified team. Off-grid. Deep intel. You'll need to vanish." I didn't hesitate. "Yes, sir." And just like that, I disappeared. Not just from my family's eyes, but from every official record my mother could ever find. My first mission was in Colombia. We were tasked with locating a soldier believed dead for over a year. While drones circled the jungle from above, I crawled on my belly through red soil, counting guards, memorizing dialects, tracking every movement. We got him out. Not a single casualty. Mission success. Mission classified. A month later, I was in Myanmar, leading a nighttime infiltration into a cartel-controlled zone. We extracted an informant who had gone dark. He was being tortured when we found him. I carried him out myself, 6 miles through swampland. My shoulder dislocated halfway through. I didn't tell anyone until the mission was done. That was when they gave me a name. Not a call sign. A legend. Iron Falcon. Not because I was loud. Not because I was ruthless. But because I could move through hell unseen. My presence never left a trace. My hands carried others through fire, and when the smoke cleared, I was already gone. Even my teammates didn't know my full name. To them, I was only C. Hayes, the quiet one, the ghost. And for years, I lived like that, floating between war zones, safe houses, and the shifting shadows of geopolitical secrets. Silence wasn't just my armor. It became my second skin. Some nights, I dreamed of calling home. Just once. Just to say, "Mother, I'm doing something that matters." But the thought never lasted. By the time morning came, I would already be in another country, already preparing for another mission, already swallowed back into the silence. That silence became my way of life. Camouflage wasn't just a uniform. It was my existence. And in that silence, I found a strange kind of peace. While Emily sat in our mother's living room, still trying to prove she was worthy, I was already living the life they never imagined I could survive. I was thriving. I didn't chase rank. I didn't chase medals. But they came anyway, quietly. Each time my name appeared as C. Hayes. Even the Distinguished Service Cross came in a sealed envelope. No ceremony. No photographs. No applause. And that was how I preferred it. Because the moment I became visible, everything would change. But fate has its own timing. The invitation arrived through official channels. A formal event at the military academy. A keynote address on leadership, legacy, and loyalty. To be delivered by none other than General Margaret Hayes. I had just returned from northern Syria, my ribs still bruised from a rooftop fall. I could have ignored the invitation. I could have stayed in the shadows. But something pulled me there. Pride, maybe. Or perhaps masochism. I arrived in a dark suit. Civilian clothes. My hair tied back, my ribbons and insignia left behind. I wanted no attention, no spotlight. Just the chance to see her, to hear her speak, to face the woman who had chosen to erase me. The hall was filled with officers, cadets, and reporters. The honor choir had just finished when my mother stepped onto the stage. She looked the same. Rigid. Impeccable. Unshakable. The crowd erupted in applause. I did not. Her voice carried across the room with the ease of a woman used to being admired. She spoke of sacrifice, of discipline, of loyalty. She told stories of battles and campaigns, her tone soaked in authority. Some of the stories I recognized. Some of them I had even cross-referenced for missions of my own. And then she said it. "I have one daughter," she declared. Emily Hayes. A woman I raised with the values of service and honor. My body stiffened. The air caught in my lungs. One daughter. Not a slip of the tongue. Not an oversight. A deliberate erasure. Spoken loudly, proudly, in front of the world. I didn't blink. I didn't break. I just breathed, slow and controlled. Because rage is loud, but control is lethal. Around me, I heard whispers. Admiration for Emily. Praise for the so-called Hayes legacy. I sat in silence, my face calm, but inside, my heart was burning with a truth I could no longer contain. That night, in a dim motel room outside West Point, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My ribs ached. My pride ached worse. It wasn't just that my mother didn't see me. It was that she didn't want me to be seen. And in that moment, I made a decision. The cloak of secrecy that had protected me for so long was now protecting her lie. And I was finished carrying that burden. The following morning, I sat at the edge of that motel bed, laptop open, the glow of the screen sharp against the dark. My fingers hovered over the keys, then moved with precision. I began typing a report, line by line, mission by mission. Every operation I had ever led. Every life I had pulled back from the edge. Every battle fought in silence. Colombia, Myanmar, Afghanistan, Syria. Classified extractions. Hostage rescues. Cartel takedowns. Each one logged with dates, locations, names, outcomes. I attached photographic evidence, encrypted video files, voice recordings of command briefings where my voice gave the final green light. At the bottom of that report, I wrote one line. Service record of Colonel Claire Hayes. Request for Medal of Honor consideration under true identity. And then one final attachment. My official military ID. Issued only weeks earlier during a reclassification process. Bearing my full name, my rank, my clearance level. There was no more hiding. I submitted the report through encrypted channels straight to the Pentagon. Then I waited. 3 weeks passed. Silence. 5 weeks. Still nothing. By the 7th week, my patience was bleeding thin. And then, on the 8th, a letter arrived. Not a call. Not a meeting. A letter. At first, the words were polite. We appreciate your service. Your record reflects commendable leadership. But then came the blow. After review, your file has been withdrawn from consideration for the Medal of Honor. Grounds: insufficient documentation, lack of public mission confirmation. The recommendation, they said, was not endorsed by the supervising general officer. The name signed at the bottom, General Margaret Hayes. My mother. She had seen my file. She had seen the proof. She had held my future in her hands. And she struck me down. It wasn't just denial. It was deliberate. It was personal. The Medal of Honor wasn't just a ribbon. It was the record. The truth. The proof carved in bronze that what I had done, what I had survived, was real. And she had erased me again. Once as a daughter. Now as a soldier. That night, clarity hit me harder than any bullet I had ever taken. I had nothing left to lose. Not a name. Not a family. Not a place in her shadow. Only one thing remained. Justice. Not revenge. Justice. I filed an appeal, not through the military, but through Congress. A provision, rarely used, allowed any service member to petition a joint review board under the Defense Authorization Act. It was a long shot, almost impossible. But I didn't care. This time, I wasn't asking. I was demanding to be heard. I attached everything again. Cleaner this time. Affidavits from operators who had bled beside me. Satellite overlays. Drone footage unreleased showing my silhouette under fire, dragging 3 prisoners to safety, a bullet tearing into my leg, and yet I never stopped. At the end, I added a statement. Precise. Unshaken. I am Colonel Claire Hayes. I have led 27 classified missions under the designation Iron Falcon. My actions were hidden not to protect me, but to protect politics. I now speak because silence is no longer service. It is complicity. Weeks passed, but this silence felt different. Not dead. Alive. Active. Rumbling beneath the surface. A call came from a private number. A congressional staffer. We've received your petition. We are initiating a bipartisan inquiry. I hung up, my breath steady. Not relief, resolve. Because now it had begun. And this time, my mother could not erase me behind closed doors. I built my case like I had built every mission plan. Step by step. No wasted motion. No margin for error. My apartment in Alexandria became a war room. Stacks of redacted reports. Declassified intel. Procedural handbooks. Every line became ammunition. I submitted a second petition through the Congressional Special Review Committee. This bypassed the Pentagon entirely. No more walls. No more gates she could guard. My appeal included mission footage, biometrics, field citations, even a personal letter signed by a retired lieutenant general who had once commanded me. His words cut through every lie. She saved lives. She deserves recognition. But I didn't stop there. With the help of a military attorney, I compiled a whistleblower dossier against my own mother. It documented everything: favoritism, interference in commendation pipelines, suppression of my file, dates, signatures, witnesses, proof stacked like bricks of truth she could no longer bury. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't hiding in the dark. I was aiming into it. The petition spread like wildfire through the back halls of Capitol Hill. One senator in particular, Carolyn Reeves, a veteran herself, read my submission and called for a private briefing. I walked into her office in full uniform, medals aligned, collar sharp, ribbons earned, but never truly recognized. I saluted, my face steady, my spine unbroken. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. She leaned forward and asked one question. Tell me the truth. And so I did. Every mission, every omission, every door my mother had closed, every record she had buried. I told her everything. Her brow furrowed, her hands folded, and finally she said, "This isn't just about a medal. This is about a system." Exactly. Within a week, she had initiated a bipartisan inquiry. Quiet but powerful. She cited unusual suppression patterns in commendation routing involving high-ranking relatives. My mother's name wasn't spoken, but the shadow was obvious. Still, whispers are fragile. Proof is unbreakable. So, I went further. I filed a whistleblower report at the Department of Defense Inspector General's office. The clerk looked at me, almost reverent. His voice low. "Are you sure you want to do this, ma'am?" I nodded. I've survived worse. Because this wasn't revenge. This wasn't about humiliation. It was about the record. And records, once written, become history. And history becomes legacy. Then came the invitation. Not from Congress. Not from the Pentagon. From the Naval Officer Training Command. A formal request for Colonel C. Hayes to consult at a SEAL qualification round in Coronado. They didn't know who I really was. Not yet. When I stepped off the chopper at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, the morning air was thick with fog and salt. I wore plain tactical gear. No ribbons. No rank. Just credentials tucked in my pocket. From the observation deck, I watched the candidates stumble through obstacles. Barked orders, sand-filled boots, sweat-soaked uniforms. None of it unfamiliar. I had endured worse, in terrains their maps didn't even name. The officers on the command line were men I knew by reputation. Men who had once laughed at me in silence. And there, standing tall with a clipboard in hand, was my mother, General Margaret Hayes. The evaluation chief, Commander Willis, turned to her and smirked, probably at a rookie who failed to clear the net. Then his eyes landed on me. "Colonel Hayes, would you care to offer insights?" I nodded. "Not yet, but I would like to run one set." He blinked. "You mean the rifle course?" "Yes." Before he could stop me, I moved toward the weapons table, toward the M14. My rifle. My history. I picked it up, my fingers finding grooves they had known for decades. And that was when my mother's voice cut through the air. Sharp, cold, familiar. And you are? I turned slowly, my voice flat, steady. C. Hayes. Willis laughed. You don't belong here. The line of instructors chuckled in agreement. But I said nothing. Not one word. I stepped to the firing line, chambered around, exhaled. Boom. Center. Boom. Card sliced clean. Boom. Moving clay shattered mid-flight. Gasps. Whispers. She just broke Larson's record. And then, the final shot. A ricochet. Perfect angle. Shattering two sensors no one had ever touched. I lowered the rifle, placed it on the table, and stepped back. The silence was deafening. Commander Willis turned slowly to my mother. His words tight, almost stunned. She just broke every record we have. Her face paled. Her jaw locked. Her hands froze around the clipboard. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply walked away. Past their eyes. Past their fear. Past my mother's disbelief. Because the best answer to mockery isn't noise. It's proof. By nightfall, whispers had already begun to spread across the base. Who was she? Where did she train? Why had no one ever heard her name on any SEAL list? They only knew the initials C. Hayes. And then someone noticed the tattoo. The insignia burned into my skin. A falcon, wings outstretched, iron forged. The mark of the unit they said never existed. The mark of Iron Falcon. A young Marine froze when he saw it as I signed my departure form. His voice trembled. Ma'am, did you serve with Task Unit Delta 19? I kept my face flat. No comment. But the truth was already loose. That Marine told another. And that soldier had a brother who worked in defense journalism. By the next morning, forums lit up like wildfire. Who is C. Hayes? What is Iron Falcon? Was she the one in Kandahar? Old photographs surfaced. Blurry screenshots from helmet cams. A blurred figure dragging civilians to safety, stance sharp, rifle heavy. They compared the stance, the patch, the silhouette. They matched it to me. Then came the leaks. An after-action report, never before made public, appeared online. Buried at the corner was a signature. C. Hayes. Commander. Task Unit Delta 19. Code name, Iron Falcon. The press pounced. CNN requested an interview. Fox News branded me the ghost colonel. Veterans groups posted messages of gratitude. Lawmakers asked for more information. Hashtags exploded across every platform. Iron Falcon unmasked. Who is Claire Hayes? The silent hero. And while the world speculated, one person needed no confirmation. My mother, General Margaret Hayes. She had already read the same reports, seen the same footage, connected the same dots. The daughter she erased, the soldier she denied, the voice she silenced, was now being hailed as a myth come to life. And this time, she couldn't bury it. Not behind closed doors. Not under her rank. Not with her silence. Because the storm had broken, and the truth was no longer mine to hide. The invitation came 3 weeks later. Not from the Pentagon. Not from Congress. From the Naval Commissioning Ceremony at Fort Stratton. I was listed as the keynote speaker. My name printed, clear as day. Colonel Claire Hayes. Operation Iron Falcon. Declassified. The day arrived warm, spring light spilling across the Hall of Honors. Inside, 500 people filled the seats. Cadets. Officers. Reporters. Families. Cameras waited. Broadcasts prepared. The world was watching. I stood backstage, uniform pressed, silver eagles gleaming on my collar. My ribbons aligned, sharp against the fabric. But there was one space left empty. The Medal of Honor. Still denied. still withheld. The announcer's voice rang out. "Please welcome, Colonel Claire Hayes." The name thundered across the hall like gunfire. I stepped forward, boots heavy, steps deliberate, silence falling over the room. And there, 3 rows back, sat my mother, General Margaret Hayes. Her jaw clenched, her knuckles white around the program booklet. Beside her, my sister Emily, dressed in a crisp uniform, her eyes wide, confusion breaking across her face. I reached the podium, my hand steady, my breath calm, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Good afternoon. I am Colonel Claire Hayes. For over 20 years, I served in operations too classified to name. I led missions that left no signatures, saved lives without parades, and honored my oath when no one was watching." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "I am the daughter of General Margaret Hayes." The silence deepened. The words hit like thunder in a storm. "I was the commander of Task Unit Delta 19. Code name, Iron Falcon. You didn't know because I wasn't meant to be known. That was the price of protecting others. A price I paid alone." The hall froze. Cameras clicked. The weight of history pressed into every corner of the room. My name was scrubbed from records, my deeds attributed to ghosts. And when I submitted my Medal of Honor nomination, I discovered it was struck down by my own mother. I paused, letting the weight of that truth settle. Not in anger, not in vengeance, but in proof. This ceremony isn't about revenge. It's about truth. About the soldiers who rose when no one believed they could. About daughters who carried the fight, even when their families erased them. The applause began slowly, cautious, then stronger, louder, until it broke like a wave crashing against stone. I turned to a young cadet standing on stage, sweat on her brow, Valor Award waiting in my hands. "Ensign Hope Keller, you embody courage without ego, leadership without applause. Wear this medal not because it makes you a hero, but because you already are one." The hall erupted. Cadets stood, officers clapped, the choir's voices drowned beneath the roar. I looked back once, straight into my mother's eyes. For the first time, she didn't look through me. She saw me. And it burned her. The very next morning, my name was everywhere. Headlines splashed across every paper, every network, every screen. Iron Falcon unmasked. The ghost colonel revealed. Colonel Claire Hayes, the hero they tried to erase. Some celebrated me. Some questioned me. Critics called it spectacle. Others called it history. But I didn't care, because for the first time, the truth was louder than the silence. Inside the Pentagon, whispers grew into storms. Investigations opened. Files reviewed. My mother's name appeared in every report, tied to suppression, favoritism, obstruction. She was quietly removed from command, her reputation crumbling under the weight of the truth she had tried so hard to bury. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I simply watched. Days later, my sister Emily found me outside the gym on base. Her voice low, almost rehearsed. I didn't know it would go this far. I met her eyes, steady, but I did. She flinched, silence breaking the space between us. "You should have told me." I shook my head. "Would you have believed me? Or would you have run to her first?" She said nothing, because silence, once again, was her answer. I turned away, my voice even. We were never on the same side. Not really. And with that, I left her standing in the shadow she had chosen. Weeks later, I signed my retirement papers. No farewell ceremony. No speeches carved with polite lies. Just a signature. Just silence. The same way I had entered. The same way I had lived. But my story didn't end there. I moved to Colorado, where the mountains were quiet, the forests unbroken. There, I opened the Hayes Center for Veteran Women, a sanctuary for those who had fought, who had returned invisible, who deserved to be seen again. We trained. We healed. We rebuilt. Some of the women whispered when they saw me, "Is that her? The Iron Falcon?" I never confirmed. I never denied. Because I was never after legacy. I was after purpose. One young woman once asked me, "Why didn't you destroy them? You had the chance." I smiled, quiet but sharp. Because breaking them would never build me. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's freedom. At night, under the Colorado stars, I sometimes held my old M14, its stock worn, its weight familiar. I didn't fire it. I simply remembered. And when I looked in the mirror for the first time in my life, I saw someone whole. Not invisible. Not erased. Not forgotten. I was Claire Hayes. Soldier. Survivor. Leader. Woman. They had tried to erase me. But you can't erase what you never created. And now I lived free. Not as a shadow. Not as a daughter denied. But as myself. Exactly as I was always meant to be.